All right, good morning to you on this Friday, October the 7th. And of course, the majority of this video will be spent discussing Hurricane Matthew with you. There's a look during the 5 o'clock hour this morning from the Avalon Pier web camera on the North Carolina Outer Banks. Now, of course, conditions in the Outer Banks are not that bad. It's squally with some showers moving through and an onshore flow. East wind at 7 miles per hour, temperature 74. But of course, nothing like what's happening off to the south. Now let's take a peek here to Tropical Update. And if you were watching the video yesterday, I mentioned that I thought that idea of a South Florida landfall that was being advertised in some circles was incorrect. And thought this had grazed pretty close to the Space Coast and points north. Well, it is still yet to make a landfall in Florida. I'll show you that in just a second. There's a look at the radar this morning. You have some light rain across portions of the central Carolinas, and then there's your heavier rain closer to the coast. And that's going to continue to feed further inland today. And so most of the Carolinas will have rain at times today. Now there's Matthew's warning scenario, the purple outlined or the purple shaded areas. Those are hurricane warnings for much of the Florida coast, all of the Georgia coast, and then from there up to a good chunk of the South Carolina coast, including Charleston. And again, here's that advisory, the latest advisory. Pressure is still very low. What's been hampering Matthew really is it's been going through what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. It's had an outer eye wall around the original inner eye. And there's still some signs this morning that we're seeing that inner eye wall finally collapse and that outer eye wall is taking over completely. The pressure is very low, so weakening is going to be slow to occur. And I think with this having avoided landfall in Florida to this point, that is increasing the surge threat pretty significantly for the Georgia and South Carolina coasts. More on that in just a moment. Again, here's the location and advisory information as of the 5 a.m. advisory. And here's the track forecast. Notice this stays a major hurricane very close to the Georgia coast and then bending from there as we get into tonight and tomorrow near the South Carolina coast. Now, gradual weakening will occur. The upper level winds become much more hostile up here, so you'll see some weakening occur. But I think you could see a pretty significant issue with surge along the Georgia and South Carolina coasts as this moves on through over the next 24 to 36 hours. From there, the system could very well make this big loop and wind up heading back down in a much, much weakened state toward the Bahamas next week. Now let's talk about wind potential. And this particular model brings the center onshore for Florida. Again, I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think this basically parallels just off the Florida coast, and then from there, I do think this could very well move inland for a period of time, very, very briefly, in South Carolina, maybe close to Charleston, before it heads back out to sea. And I think and I'll show you this again in just a moment on some detailed wind products. You're going to have, when the system is just to the south, a long period of onshore flow and increased surge there over Georgia and South Carolina tonight and tomorrow. And I think that is going to cause some significant coastal issues in those, especially typically storm surge prone areas. Now, rain potential with this could easily see a foot of rain in the eastern parts of the Carolinas. And you see some of these totals here in the RPM modeling, 14, 15 inches. That might be a little excessive, but certainly it looks like a heavy rain event. And what will happen here, and ignore the blue shaded area, but the green shaded areas here, that is where you have the ongoing flood watches with this system. And what will happen is as you get the upper level trough moving in from the west, you get more and more of the heavier precipitation actually on the left side of the hurricane. And so that's why you have that pretty prolific amount of rain in parts of the Carolinas. So as we go through today, the easterly flow increasing. Same deal tonight. So we're going to have rain at times here across the Carolinas today and tonight. And as we get into your Saturday, I do think the shield of some of this heavier rain could even make it back to the Interstate 85 corridor for a period of time before this cold front eventually sweeps everything out by late tomorrow. Your highs definitely held in check again for your Saturday. Now, as we get into Sunday, that cold front pushes everything out to sea. If you have outdoor plans for the weekend here in the Carolinas, Sunday, absolutely the pick day. Sunday looks perfect weather-wise, maybe a little bit of breezy, but it looks good. A lot of sun, full sunshine Sunday in the interior Carolinas and highs that look like that. But let me get back here and show you some of the nitty-gritty details here regarding Matthew. And I'll show you some of the specific modeling here. This is the GFDL, and it is offshore from Jacksonville here early this evening. From there, very close to Charleston in a weakening state by midday tomorrow. And then there it goes, offshore from the Outer Banks thereafter. Now, the Hurricane Wharf model, again, very intense system, a little bit east of the North Florida coast as we get into this afternoon and this evening. And then, again, very close to Charleston early tomorrow. And out it kind of goes from there just off the coast of Wilmington and Myrtle Beach tomorrow evening. So here's what's steering all this. You have this trough moving on in. That's what's collecting Matthew and turning it to the north and northeast. But it gets left behind. That's why you see it meander around there, maybe making a loop back down toward the Bahamas. And I'll show you the wind products in just a minute, but let me just step you through the European model. This is this evening. There we go, overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. You see that shield of heavier rain getting more on the left side of the hurricane as the trough interacts with the system. This is early tomorrow afternoon. And then Saturday evening, and then there it goes Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon as high pressure builds in. All right, GFS model. This is this afternoon. This is this evening. This is now overnight tonight and into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday evening, and then there it goes from there out to sea. Let's talk about the wind. This is the GFS wind product this evening. And this is as you get into this evening and overnight tonight. And again, I think at this point in time, you have this pronounced onshore flow in the South Carolina coast to this evening, and that's when you have the greatest storm surge potential and coastal flooding potential. From there, this is Saturday morning, Saturday early afternoon. At that point in time, you see an offshore flow for the Georgia and South Carolina coasts, and then there it goes out to sea. At this point in time tomorrow, that's when you could have some coastal flooding for the Outer Banks with that onshore flow very pronounced. But eventually, again, even in the Outer Banks, this turns to a northerly flow by Sunday morning. So let me show you, first of all, the storm surge maps from the National Hurricane Center. It's maybe a little bit tough to see here, but what we're looking at is North Florida up to around Brunswick, Georgia, and all these little sounds here. That's where you could see 3 to 6, maybe 9 feet of inundation in some instances. And then further up the South Carolina coast, here's Charleston right here. And again, you go up the coast from there, and any of these inlets where you have that prolonged onshore flow late today and through tonight, 3 to 6 plus inches of storm surge is a possibility. Very quickly here, we'll take a look at the GFS rain totals that it's printing out. And again, you notice these 1 foot plus rain totals there in parts of North Carolina. And then there's your sharp gradient, again, as it seems to always be, right along Interstate 85. Lighter totals to the north and west, but places like Charlotte and Greensboro, I think 1, 2, maybe 3 inches on the upper end. All right, so there you go. That is it for the latest edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Thank you for watching. Everybody stay safe. Have a great weekend, and God bless.